What can they do at this point? What are they doing right now behind the scenes?
So I think the biggest thing that they can do, and what we need to do as a nation, is we need to figure out how to work together between the public and the private sector. The government's job, specifically the Defense Department and Cyber Command, is to defend the country from attacks. But they can't see those attacks in time to do something about it. As a consequence, it's incident response. That's too late. So we need to build, in my words, a radar picture, an air traffic control picture of attacks coming into our country from the private sector side in an anonymized way that can be shared with the government so they can respond. This is really important because I think our nation is going to be continuously tested in this space. As you mentioned, solar winds, you look at the Microsoft hack, you see a number of different attacks by China and by Russia and by groups like DarkSide that are hitting us with ransomware. Yet right now, every company is defending itself. That's crazy. We have to work together like a radar picture, show the government what's coming after us, and allow the government the opportunity to defend this country. We've got to get good at it because—
So when you look—
Go ahead.
When you look at this hack, what do you see here? What is at stake? And does this look different than other ransomware attacks to you?
Well, it's interesting listening to what Mike said. I kind of agree with him on parts of it. I think they went after this, seeing it as a target. They got in, probably through phishing. They got in, they spread throughout that, they grabbed information, they brought it back, and they thought, ooh, this is a lucrative target. I think they underestimated how big a target this would be for our nation. And as a consequence, they probably put themselves into an area where they now will be aggressively pursued by the FBI and others. So that, I think, was overseen. The issue you brought up with them, though, Russian involvement. Almost for sure, some of these folks came out of Russian hacker groups, GRU, SVR, something like that. They're moonlighting or they're already out. But if they're in Russia working this, the government almost for sure knows what they're doing. So this is something where we have to get out in front. We have to attribute and hold these people accountable. We need to make them pay a price if we're ever going to get this to stop. The only way to do that is to catch them in time to stop them.
Do you have any indication here that there was any other motivation other than profit? For example, in the worst case, did they intend to blow up the pipeline, or are they just trying to make a buck?
Well, I would say most probably just trying to make money off of two areas. Encrypt the data and make them pay for that, steal data and make them pay to get it back. So those two, they're going to get paid twice for this thing, where they're going to try to. It could be, if you step back, the question that you ask is one that deserves merit, something that has to be looked at. Is this being used as a test to see, can they get in? FireEye cleans it up. Can they maintain access even after the cleanup? And can they do something going from the IT system, which is what they've hit, over into the OT system? So I think this is a good place where the White House has actually done a good job in bringing this together as one of their 100-day things. Let's go after the energy sector, bring IT, OT together, and go after this, create that collective defense for the energy, the oil and gas, and others. So I think that's the right approach that the White House has, but we have to go beyond that, in my opinion.
It does make you think about the worst case scenario when a company that's using computers connected to the internet does something as important as transports fuel. What is the worst case scenario in your view?
Well, I mean, shutting down the network that they have is, about as bad. Could they do things to the industrial control systems, the concern the government has and why they're putting a focus on it? Absolutely want to do that. I'll tell you my experience. The energy sector at large, and I deal with a number of them, they are laser focused on defending the grid and other parts of our sector. I am singularly impressed with the CEOs of many of these companies leaning forward and say, we'll work together to defend this nation, and we'll share that with the government. So they've got the right approach. We got to help them cross that bridge from the private sector to the public sector to actually do that. Bad things can happen for sure. You see that in hospitals. industrial control systems. It could be the same in the energy, oil and gas, and others. But I am impressed with the way the energy sector and the oil and gas are working. But they can't do it by themselves. And that's today what's happening. Every company out there is defending itself, and it can't get that information to the government in time for the government to help stop it. We've got to change that way we're doing business. It's got to change. Real-time collective defense, I think, is the future for cybersecurity.
So let's talk about then the Colonial Pipeline itself. They're saying they should be able to get back online by the end of the week. We don't know yet if they've paid this ransom. What approach should they take? Should they pay? Do you know if they've paid? And how long after that does it normally take for a ransomware victim to get back online?
Well, so what they're going through is they have to go through all the systems that were infected, rebuild those systems, clean them out, clean all the malware out. FireEye, Mandiant portion of FireEye, I'm sure Kevin Mandiant and his teams are all over this. They're great at that and of doing this together. That's one step. I think they won't pay, but I don't know that for sure. I think that they're in cleaning up and they will do that. And then the second question is, what about that 100 gigabytes of data? What do they do about that? That was stolen and it could be given out. And I think, again, I don't know if they're going to pay or not. I think they'd be reluctant to pay. I think that's where our government's got to step in and help Colonial. They're a victim here. And we can't treat them like they're the bad guys. They're the victim. A nation state or people with nation state-like tools attack them. And we can't treat them as the bad guy here. Colonial was attacked. And we should hold the bad guys that actually did this accountable. So we have to change that rhetoric that's going on out there. Colonial is a victim.